Late fees, interest charges, we all know the drill, right? It just seems like a normal part of life. But what if I told you there's a totally different way to think about late payments? Today, we're diving into a financial standard that takes a really unique approach to what it calls the procrastinating debtor. So, picture this. Someone owes you money, and you know they can pay, they've got the cash, but for whatever reason, they just don't. Now, in most systems we're used to, the answer is pretty simple. Penalties, interest, you name it. But we're about to explore a framework that completely turns that idea on its head. And to understand this, we're going straight to the source. Everything we're talking about today comes from this document right here, Sharia Standard Number 3. It's all about the procrastinating debtor. This is the actual blueprint for how Islamic financial institutions are supposed to handle this exact situation. Okay, so first things first, we need to get really specific about who we're talking about here, because this standard isn't for everyone. It has a super precise definition. And that definition is absolutely critical. You got to look at the key words here. Solvent, which means they can pay, and refuses to pay. So we're not talking about someone who's hit hard times and genuinely can't make ends meet. No, this is about someone who has the money but is willfully, deliberately, just not paying. And honestly, this distinction, it's the whole ballgame. The entire framework hinges on this one idea. The standard draws this really clear, bright line between someone who won't pay and someone who can't pay. If you're insolvent, if you genuinely can't pay, the guidance is all about grace periods and compassion. All the stuff we're about to get into, it only applies to that first group, the ones who can pay but choose not to. All right, so now we know who we're dealing with. Let's get to the what. What actually happens? And this is where things get, well, really different from what most of us are probably used to. It all starts with a huge foundational rule. And here it is, the big one. The central pillar of this whole thing is you are not allowed to charge someone extra money just for being late. That's it. No late fees, no penalty interest, nothing that turns their delay into a way for the creditor to make a profit. So you might be asking, why is this rule so absolute? Well, this quote really nails it. Any kind of charge that's based just on time passing, that's considered a form of riba, which is basically interest or any kind of unearned gain. And that's a big no-no in Islamic finance. The whole point is to avoid exploiting the debtor, even if they're totally in the wrong. Okay, but wait a minute. This raises a huge question, right? If you can't charge late fees, what's stopping people from just not paying? What's the incentive? And what is a creditor supposed to do? Are they just stuck? Well, no, not at all, actually. The standard actually lays out a very specific and pretty powerful set of tools for the creditor. The idea is to make sure they get their money back and that justice is served, but without ever crossing that line into forbidden financial penalties. So here's a quick look at the creditor's toolkit. As you can see, it's a real mix of things. We're talking about making the debtor pay for the actual costs of collection, some pretty serious reputational damage, and even some things with a social angle. Let's dig into a couple of these. Okay, this first one is so important. The creditor can't profit from the delay, but, and this is a big but, they don't have to lose money either. So the debtor who's delaying has to cover all the actual expenses the creditor racks up trying to get that money back. We're talking about legal fees, things like that. It's not a penalty. It's about making the creditor whole again. It's just simple restitution. Now, what if there's collateral involved, like a mortgage on a house? The creditor can totally demand that the asset be sold to pay the debt. But check out the fairness built into the process. The standard says you have to give the debtor the first shot at selling it themselves. Only if they don't or can't can the creditor or the court step in and force the sale. And this one is probably the most unique tool in the whole set. To create a financial consequence that isn't a forbidden penalty, the contract can actually require the procrastinating debtor to donate money to charity. And here's the key. The creditor doesn't see a dime of it. The money goes to a good cause. So it acts as a deterrent, but it's society that benefits, not the lender. Pretty clever, right? So when you step back and look at all these rules together, you start to see a really clear philosophy taking shape. The whole system is really built around one core idea. And this quote just says it all. It completely reframes the whole problem. A wealthy person refusing to pay their debt isn't just a late payment or a business issue. It's called what it is, an injustice. And an injustice has to be dealt with, not to make a profit, but to restore a sense of fairness. So in the end, it's all about this really careful balancing act. On one hand, you have to protect the creditor. They have a right to get their money back and to be covered for any real costs they had. But on the other hand, you have these super strict ethical lines drawn in the sand to make sure that debt never becomes a tool for exploitation through fees and interest. And that leaves us with a pretty big thought to chew on. I mean, let's be real. In the world most of us live in, late fees are a massive business. They're a huge source of revenue. This standard offers a completely different model. It's a radical alternative that really forces us to ask a simple but powerful question. What's the real point of a late fee? Is it to make money, or is it to achieve justice?